because I'm going to bring up, obviously, the group that Argentina is drawn in, which will go back to the poll discussion, which definitely hits a nail on the head on something I was going to raise. So obviously, they were drawn in Group J. People call it the Group A group, whatever that means. I guess the three A's. So Argentina will play Algeria, Austria, and Jordan. So before we get back into the other things, I was going to do a reaction on all the teams, but because of our, passion for South American football and so on, and some of the factors we mentioned before, this is obviously a very different Argentina without, pretty much stating the obvious. Lionel Messi is obviously older now, slower, and, the reasons you mentioned before, he's playing in a less competitive league. What do you think about Argentina's chances of, it seems like a silly question, but in football these days, you never know. Look at the Saudi Arabia game. What do you think about this current version of Argentina and, they're standing in his group? What do you think Lionel Scaloni is thinking right now?
I mean, he's saying, hey, guys, we can't mess it up again.
Yep.
Because if they do, they're with this format, not only do you have a margin of error, you do have Argentina are obligated to come out in first place. Let's just say it as it is. They're obligated. They should come out. At worst, they should end up 7 out of 9. I'm talking about the worst, and them playing poorly. They should be able to get out of the group without many complications. Now, the complication in Argentina's World Cup begin at the next round because they would end up playing either Uruguay or Spain, or if they do advance, they'll play Spain or Uruguay after that. There's a possibility they could run into both of them and route just to the semifinals. So it's not going to be an easy path for Argentina in any way, shape, or form. It's that their World Cup begins a lot later, if you want to call it that. I mean, Austria just maybe could be the team. Algeria, knowing how they play kind of counterattacking football and very aggressive, very capable of playing in a lower block and exploding out in some type of transition, they can do that. That ends up being the big question mark. How do they come in? What attitude do they come in with? Because if there is one thing that many are starting to harp on, is that this team is starting to look complacent at times.
Yes.
And it's crazy. It's crazy and it's harsh, because it's crazy to say that because, I mean, yeah, which team wouldn't end up being complacent after winning 2 Copa Americas, winning a Finalissima, and winning a World Cup? Many would. But at the same time, it seems harsh because there really hasn't been a huge test, going into this final stretch of World Cup qualifying. There really hasn't. I mean, if they lost points, so what? We're already in. If the margin between us and second place is a little smaller, so what? They're not going to catch up to us. So there really hasn't been that one huge telltale sign, if you will, of level dropping off, because you can also say that this team knows when and how to turn it back on. The question is, will they be able to do it? And not only that, you start to see them and comparing them to, let's say, Brazil, to Colombia, that are starting. Hey, by the way, we're playing teams that are going to prepare us for the World Cup. Argentina are playing friendlies. I mean, going to Angola, and I'm not being mean on Angola. It's not a team that I would look to prepare myself properly going into the World Cup and using them, or even considering going to India and playing a football match, or the previous in September and October, the matches that they played. I don't see that as a viable option. So again, as my answer ended up being in the last question, is the true Argentina going into the World Cup, we might only be able to see them when they play Spain.
Yeah. And the reason why I brought that up, it coincides perfectly with what we were talking about with Inter Miami. You mentioned complacency as well. One of my criticisms, and, I mean, Scaloni probably knows what he's doing. He may go on to win the whole thing. Who knows? I mean, we don't know. But one of my criticisms is that, okay, they qualified really pretty early. They got that convincing win against Brazil without Messi. And I did have a lot of issues with Rodrigo de Paul going to Inter Miami. I also have a huge concern that gap between now and when the MLS resumes. For Messi, let's speak about Lionel Messi, because, he's being coy about if he's going to be at the World Cup. I'm pretty sure he's going to be there barring some injury. I think it's just a bit of a mind game. But if he does go, what is Messi going to do for these next couple of months? And also Rodrigo de Paul. And not just those two guys, the wing backs for Argentina, something a little bit of a concern for me because, the last World Cup, you had Gonzalo Montiel and Molina. And then you had Acuna and Tagliafico. Acuna is now back in River. Montiel back in River as well. These guys are not playing at the top level anymore. I mean, the South American League is pretty high compared to the MLS, but still, these guys definitely have age. And, one of the questions are coming up. Everybody talks about the curse of the World Cup winners. A lot of the times, not often, I mean, France proved that's not the case. This Argentina team coming in with the complacency that you mentioned, that it seems that way. Maybe it's not, I don't know. What do you think about this particular squad? Because from what I'm seeing, I felt as if Scaloni did not take advantage of qualifying early in my eyes in terms of the friendlies and using players. A lot of people saying he did not implement players like, Barco, other options, Paz as well. And these guys trying alternate center-back options. Otamendi is still in there. Lisandro Martinez is just coming back from an injury. He's trying out Senesi and a couple other guys. But it seems to me, at least, that it's pretty much the same squad with the exception of one or two players. And to me, that further underlines, I think, a little bit of complacency that it seems in my eyes that Scaloni thinks that they could get the job done with this team. And I don't think so. And, that was more of a statement than a question. But my question to you now is Lionel Messi, as we spoke about in the Inter Miami section of this video. What is that Messi going to be like? Do you think he's going to go on loan? Do you think Rodrigo de Paul is going to go back to Atletico Madrid for those couple of months? What do you think is going to happen?
No. It's not going to happen. I mean, the people talk about them going on loan. It's not going to happen. They're not. They're going to go 4 matches, 5 matches.
Well, true. Yeah.
I say this because Messi and De Paul and I think Luis Suarez are about to get on a plane today or tomorrow to head to India.
Yeah,
they're doing a whole tour over there. They're expected to be at the presentation of this 70-foot statue of Leo Messi in Kerala. It's more, more of a publicity thing that they're doing over there. Huge spot. I mean, some of the biggest sponsors that the Argentine national team happen to be from India. So that's also part of the obligation that he has going over there. Inter Miami goes on tour of South America in the month of January. They're going to, it was confirmed actually today that they're playing Barcelona and Guayaquil, and they're playing Atlético Nacional in Colombia as part of their tour. I think they might be going to Central America, make one stop there. So the money that Inter Miami is getting for those tours is under the condition, I would suppose, I don't have that in front of me, is with the condition that if Leo plays there and they'll end up getting X amount. If he doesn't, they end up getting Y amount. So look, we have to look at it from that perspective. And today is December 11th, the time that we're recording. And he's going to go 3 weeks? Because Messi's not going to go jump right away. Let's say hypothetically he ends up going to Barcelona. Let's say Barcelona for argument's sake. It's going to take him 2 weeks to get ready to play. By that time, it's almost Christmas. And then he plays a couple of matches, and then the Copa del Rey starts, and all of a sudden he has to go back to Miami and start training for preseason, because Inter Miami's preseason starts early because of CONCACAF Champions League. And of course, they're getting everything revved up from late January, February into the month of March, going into April for the inauguration of the new stadium, which the objective for Inter Miami is to have Leo Messi at that stadium on that day and him being the first face that everyone sees. When it comes to that's where I see. So I don't see them going anywhere because of the time, and it's kind of pointless to be able to go for 3 matches and then come back. Yeah. That really doesn't do you any good. Argentina's problem right now, I don't think, is complacency, though. There's other things surrounding it's that whole thing that when someone becomes successful, the more money comes in, the more problems you have. Yeah. Well, that's basically right now the situation with AFA. Because what people aren't hearing internationally is that, well, the government, there's this huge clash going on with Javier Milei on one end, the president of Argentina, and Chiqui Tapia on the other. And Javier Milei right now is going full on governmentally, diplomatically, and even from a presidential standpoint, getting a lot of, I guess the equivalent would be Justice Department type of investigations that are going on into money laundering. And the name that ends up being mentioned happens to be Chiquitapia. Why? Because Chiquitapia brought in the company that's being investigated, which is like an investment or I guess it would be like one of those I guess like stockbrokers / hedge fund operators in Argentina that ended up being the sponsor not only of the Argentine League but also of the Argentine national team. And just a couple of days ago, every single one of the offices of that company ended up being raided for money laundering, drug trafficking, and things of that nature. And obviously, you end up being associated with them, and that ends up being another issue. Not only that, the political aspect and the political chess game that's going on within Argentine football ends up being more intense. Why? Because now Leo Messi is saying, I don't want anything to do with Chiquitapia. Don't come and take pictures, because when things are going bad, and things have been going bad for Argentine football, for the Argentine League, is Chiquitapia's solution? Fly to Miami, take a picture with Leo and Rodrigo de Paul drinking mate, everything's solved. Leo's with us, everything's great. Don't worry about it. Now, Messi's saying, hey, I don't want to take pictures with you. Go somewhere else. So what does he do? Chiquitapia this weekend ends up going with Felix Lasarte, who's part of the Trump Foundation legal team. And he's at Mar-a-Lago with Felix Lasarte and many other supporters of Donald Trump. And he's trying to get in good with Donald Trump so he can end up kind of stopping whatever Javier Milei is doing. I know I'm getting political, and Andre, on this one, but this is what's going on in Argentine football, which is distracting everything the national team is doing. And you're starting to see a lot of people start to choose sides on which side to be. Am I with Chiquitapia or am I with Javier Milei? So it ends up being a whole political aspect of it, kind of to an extent in a different manner, because history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. Argentina, coming off a World Cup triumph in 1982, ended up having a lot of commodities, and you're starting to see those commodities begin to emerge.
Yes, and this is why we have you on here, this insight on not just on the field, because, just like with any country.
You're right. But here's the thing, and maybe, and you could probably make a clip out of this. Mm-hmm. The biggest problem with Argentine football is how it's covered in English on social media.
Yeah.
Because for Chiquitapia, it's great, because everybody in India, everybody in Bangladesh, they only know about Leo Messi and Rodrigo de Paul and whatever one of the Argentine national team players do. And it's great. But they never report to you, they never talk to you about what's actually going on. Because many are going to hail Chiquitapia as a sensational director of football, which he has been with the national team, and he's done great things with the national team. The problem has been how he's managed the league, which is basically in the middle of a chaotic situation. Chiquitapia, in the middle of a season, also says, hey, by the way, no longer are you having two teams relegated. Now it's one. When the tournament regular season ends, I'll say, hey, by the way, guys, we're giving the Rosario Central a trophy because they were the annual champions. What are you talking about, annual champions? We never have. Oh, well, I just made it up a couple of minutes ago. And all of a sudden, he snaps his fingers. I mean, he basically did this. Okay, it's not that I'm not making it up.
Yeah.
Hey guys, so what do you think about giving Rosario Central some kind of recognition when it comes to the year they've had? You think it's fine? Cool. Brings in the trophy. This is at an executive board meeting. This was 2 weeks ago. Shows the trophy. Angel, guys, come in. He had Angel Di Maria waiting in the wings to present the trophy to them at AFA headquarters. And then later on, you see Angel Di Maria with the trophy in his car. Hey, by the way, here it is. So what? And on one end, no one in English media reported that. Oh, but Leo Messi scored.
Oh,
Who cares? This is a much bigger story. The fact that Javier Milei is looking for something to go. Just we're Thursday, correct? Well, Thursday recording right now. Monday, Tuesday, 17 football clubs in Argentina were raided by police, trying to find evidence of some type of connection with the money laundering that was being reported from Surfinanzas.
Wow.
So there were a lot of distractions, a lot of external distractions for the Argentine national team. And there most likely will be more to come. And not only that, Javier Milei was part of the delegation when he found out Chiquitapia was also going to Washington, D.C. He said, no, thank you, not for me.
Interesting.
People talk about football and football and politics are one in the same in Argentina. They're one in the same, because whenever Javier Milei goes to criticize, one of the people that he constantly criticizes aren't governors, aren't Congress. He criticizes them, aren't just governors, aren't just congressmen, aren't just the mayors of cities. It's Juan Román Riquelme. He also goes and criticizes all the time, and he has had tweets about how Riquelme is managing Boca. What the hell does he have to do? What the hell does the president of a country have to do with how a club is being run?
So just to wrap up things about Argentina. So of course, we are seeing outside the tactical aspects and looking at the squad and how things are going in. Do you think, in terms of in the incorporation of younger players, because we know it's kind of lazy to ask you if you think they're going to retain the World Cup, because that's a difficult question. It's very difficult to do. Statistically, the odds are against them in that, in that perspective. So I'm not going to even ask that question. We'll see how it goes. Can they do it? Yes. But what I would like to ask, has Scaloni done enough to incorporate newer players into the squad in terms of Paz and in the wing backs and center back positions? Or do you think perhaps, I know you said complacency is not an issue, but do you think he did enough? Because the World Cup is just a couple months away. I would even say weeks, if you count, the preparations and so on, and the pre-match, the pre-tournament friendlies. Do you think he did enough to really evolve the squad? Because, I'll use an example. I said the World Cup curse before. Italy 2010, complete disaster, in the group stage. Lippi, great coach, experienced coach, brought in guys on paper. When you look at that Italian squad, on paper, these guys were top players at the time still. And, they washed out in the first round. Spain, I was looking at the highlights last night. I don't know why it came up in my algorithm. Del Bosque, great coach. I love him. The squad, I looked at the squad. It was a pretty decent squad. But, you had Xavi, Iniesta, and these guys, they were still pretty much, I won't say prime, but they were still in good form. Xavi Alonso, all these guys. Massively flopped at the 2014 World Cup. We all saw that game against the Netherlands. France was an exception in this case. And, what do you think? Do you think Germany as well? That's the third team I was trying to remember. Yeah. They won the 2014 World Cup. Look what's going on with them. Do you think that is a real possibility for Argentina this time around? Or do you think they have enough? Scaloni is smart enough to navigate that?
The players collectively are smart enough to navigate that, to be honest with you. The Saudi Arabia loss maybe did more good than harm to Argentina. Because anytime that there's something that goes on within the national team, Scaloni always points in that direction. Guys, you have to be sharp all the time. If not, we're going to have another Saudi Arabia moment.
Right.
He keeps that as a reference. I mean, you have a coach that's very centered, that's very grounded. He doesn't go off, he doesn't have this sense of grandeur. He understands his role. He understands how the players have to play. He knows that the players have to be in the best form possible. But regarding younger players, maybe you could look at Thiago Almada has become a bit more of a reference point, especially since Di Maria retired. The question in that is, would Nico Paz be getting more time? Should Leo Messi be more of a limited option? And when I say limited in minutes, maybe he comes in off the bench. Maybe he starts and plays 60 minutes. And then who comes in? So you start looking at from that perspective as well. Maybe you start looking at some of the under 20s. Maybe you start looking at a Julio Soler. And he's been getting, Franco Mastantuono was able to get some looks, but not playing at Real Madrid doesn't help you much. All this in the question, I guess the short answer could end up being yes, but it depends in different positions who's available. Do you have someone else instead of Gonzalo Montiel at the right back position? Do you have someone like Marcos Acuna? I don't think Marcos Acuna can play anymore with the national team. Just always injured. A little bit more combative in the negative sense, and that's kind of hindered him much more. Nicolas Tagliafico would probably end up being the starter again at left back. But underneath them, who do you have? Is Julio Soler going to be a good option going forward? I don't know. So yeah, you might have a sprinkling of youth players, but the thing with Argentina is that if you look position per position, position by position, you end up seeing a team that's still relatively young. It's not a veteran laden side. Okay, Messi's 39. I give you that. Depo's 31. Okay, I'll give you that. But you still have players in their mid to late 20s in 2026 going into 2030. They'll be pretty much hitting either the peak or they are in the middle of the peak of their careers. So you do have that changeover going on as we speak.
Yeah, and that the reason why I asked that, once again, you read my mind. I said that 3 times in this video, folks.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to specifically ask, sometimes we do overuse the phrase, changing of cycles. And I did identify, a thing I wrote up on extvmedia.com. You all can check it out. One of the key strengths, in addition to the tactics and so on, was that the core of this Argentina group, with the exception of Messi, De Paul, and Otamendi, this is after the Copa America, is that they have a pretty core, strong young core that, in my mind, has about a four-year cycle, maybe more. Enzo, McAllister, those guys are engines. You have Almada coming in there, Julian Alvarez, Lautaro. These guys, some people would argue in the old days, are approaching their peak years. Dibu Martinez, goalkeepers, of course, can go way to their 30s, whatever. It's age is not really much of an issue for these guys. And barring 1 or 2 positions, I made the argument that, while I could state all the arguments why there's reasons why they can't retain the World Cup, which is history, stats it's not favorable on, teams winning back-to-back World Cups. The possibility is always there of complacency for the cases I mentioned before, with the last 3 of the last 4 World Cup winners, flopping really hard. I do think that Scaloni, in my mind, and this is me agreeing with you, Scaloni mentioned in one of those Netflix interviews the Saudi Arabia thing. And I remember seeing him when Brazil got eliminated from the last World Cup. The Argentine players were celebrating, and he was furious. And he's like, "What are you guys celebrating?" That's something. Mm-hmm. I think it's we often talk about Messi. It's easy to talk about Messi and all these other guys, but I think Scaloni, for me, Scaloni is the key. While I did express some doubts about his implementation of younger players, in my mind, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, I think Scaloni, in a lot of ways, you answered my question already. Scaloni is that level-headed guy. I can't see Scaloni being that guy who's complacent. I could see Scaloni sitting down and being like, okay, keep these guys.
He's even said it.
Yeah.
He's even said it.
Yeah.
For me to be complacent, why remain with the national team? I can go home to Mallorca and be complacent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
people forget
he said it. It's not something. It's not something that has not been said. I mean, he knows, and he's very aware of that. Mm-hmm. Now, will people be disappointed if they don't win the World Cup? Yeah, of course they will be. But the fact that they've already won one kind of taper
pressure off.
It takes a lot of pressure off. Maybe you end up seeing Argentina in their best version without Messi.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
And I think so as well. I think so as well. Just to end off this topic, I mean, I know I said I was not going to ask this, and I completely am contradicting myself. But realistically, the World Cup, your honest opinion, how do you think Argentina is going to do?
Argentina is going to do. They should at least get to semis.
Mm-hmm.
At least. It's still, they're still the team to beat. We can try and punch holes in their respective argument, but they're still one of the strongest teams, if not the strongest. Maybe Spain has something to say about that, but we could also start punching holes in Spain's argument as well. So, you don't have a team that's so overwhelmingly favored in this tournament coming in that it's very impossible. It's not like going into the 1970 World Cup and saying, "Oh, I don't think Brazil's going to win the World Cup." No,
yeah,
you have a very even field, so distributed to a point where, try and look at the group stages and tell me if there's more than 4 matches that you're kind of like totally into. Hey, okay, I'll give you 5. Look at them. So for teams like Argentina, teams like Brazil, teams like Portugal, Spain, I'll even throw in England, who's also looked at it as a possible candidate. Their World Cup doesn't start maybe until the round of 32.
Correct.
It really doesn't start there. But they know that how they end up in the group stage can have a direct impact on everything else or who they end up facing. Would you want to end up fine. You overestimate your rivals. You end up in third place, and all of a sudden Argentina comes out of the gate. Oh, by the way, you play Spain. Do you want to start out that way? No. You want to end up playing the teams when you have to play them. Although you know that as a team that's defending a title, you have to play everyone that's ahead of you. But you'd rather play Spain in the semis than play them in the second round. That's very obvious. So we shall see.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Be sure to head over to our YouTube channel where you can see interviews in cricket, football. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And also head over to extvmedia.com, our website, where we have blogs and interesting articles for you all to take a look at, which is a little bit different. So like I said, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment in the comment section below.
And make sure it sound right, boys.